All right, how's everyone doing? Okay, so I noticed a couple of patterns with the last couple of speakers here, right? And there are three obligatory things you have to check off. So I'm going to enlist your help and see if we can do that. All right, topic one. How many people went out and partied last night? None. See, you're not admitting it, right? That's the problem. Okay, so check. Ask about partying, check. Okay, topic one. Topic two, I have to admit, I was out partying last night, just like Jorge was. And, you got to suck it up and be up here after that. So we were at a terrace, right? And I'm looking out at Dubai, and we see all these fabulous vista, right, across the water, all these buildings. And I think to myself that this is out of science fiction, right? This is not real. It can't be, right? So, it's fabulous, right, to be out here in Dubai. And that's topic two, right? Mention how good Dubai is, okay? We did two topics. And I'll save the third one for a little later as we go along, okay? So, I guess it takes a while to change slides, right? I'll move forward. So a little bit about myself, right? So I am the tech guy in a suit, right? That's my bio, which means I talk a lot, right? Sometimes that makes sense, other times it doesn't, but that's what a tech guy in a suit does. All right. So the topic today is about hyperautomation and decision intelligence, right? So how many people here know the term hyperautomation or have ever heard of it? Okay, a few people, not a lot. How about decision intelligence? A lot more, a little bit more, right? Okay, well, don't worry about it, right? If you don't know what hyperautomation is or what decision intelligence is. I didn't either until I opened up ChatGPT this morning, and now I'm an expert, okay? All right, so that's thing number 3, right? Mention ChatGPT, an obligatory reference to ChatGPT. It's done, okay? All right, we're moving on. So I think last night, Bhavesh actually set up this topic pretty well, right? So he did talk about process discovery, he talked about automation and so on. And so let's get to it, right? So hyperautomation is not just RPA, it's a lot more than that, right? So it's a diverse set of new emerging technologies that get combined together essentially to produce better automation outcomes, right? It's all about the business, right? And so and there's a whole set of technologies here that I've listed. I'm not going to bore you by going through every one of them, right? There is, process mining, there is task mining, there is digital twins, there is a whole set of things, a slew of technologies that come under the umbrella, so to speak, of hyperautomation. So the question then is, right, why do I need all this, right? Why should RPA not be enough, right? I mean, automation, you can build it. What the hell is all this, right? And why do we need it? And the reason is, right, because I've been in the automation space for a very long time, right? And I have arrows in my back, so I can talk about this from experience. Automation has not been very successful, to be honest, at a lot of companies. And there are 3 main reasons why automation is not successful. The first one is people automate the wrong things, right? They have some kind of intuition about what to automate. They go about doing that, and they think that that's helping, but that's not the case. So you don't know what to automate. The second part is, right, when things change, when systems change, applications change, processes change, automation breaks. And you have to essentially go back and re-implement it, which no one wants to do, right? So that's the other reason automation doesn't work. And the third reason automation doesn't work is nobody actually knows what automation is delivering, right? So there is no good way to measure the outcomes, right? So what is the business outcome that you get from implementing automation, and how are you tracking it, right? So if I spend $10 million implementing automation, how do I know that I got $10 million back, right? How do I know that I got anything back? How do I know that it's not worse than before, right? I don't know, right? So automating the wrong things, making sure automation is current, understanding the value is what leads to all the rest of this stuff, right? to make sure that automation actually gives you business outcomes. So that's part of the hyper-automation spectrum. And then decision intelligence, right? This is very simple, right? This is again a set of new emerging technologies that help you make better decisions, okay? Now, when we look at decision intelligence, right, most people think about big decisions, right, like strategy. Okay, well, where should I invest? You know, what markets should I be in? What should my customers look like? That's nice, right? That's nice. Those are big decisions you make, and you know, you bet your company on that. But really, decision intelligence is a lot more, right? It's about small decisions, right? You have thousands, tens of thousands of employees in your company. If every one of those employees make a slightly better decision every day, and every 10 times or 100 times that they make that decision, then the outcomes will add up, right? So decision intelligence is not just about large decisions, but it's about small decisions. And it's about how do I give you just the right amount of information at the right time for you to make that slightly better decision, okay? So that's what decision intelligence is about. And it's critical to get better outcomes from automation because you're doing this now with your eyes open rather than your eyes closed. Okay. Right. So I'm going to use a similar tactic that I think Kinesh used yesterday, that people are doing digital transformation from the bottom up rather than the top down. And the way this works is you start by saying, I have an ERP upgrade, right? Or I'm buying a new cloud system or whatever shiny new application that you think your company needs, right? You start there, and then you say, okay, well, while I'm doing all this, I might as well, you know, figure out what business activities I can automate or what my processes look like. And a lot of times the vendor of the software tells you, this is how your processes should be. You should standardize, you know, we do it, right? SAP says this, Oracle, Workday, they all. Right? But why would you do that, right? Why would you let an application software vendor tell you how your business should be run? It's a terrible thing to do, right? So you go do all this stuff, right? You start with the ERP upgrade, you figure out what to automate, you look at your processes and so on. What you don't do is the top three, right? You don't look at whether your organization is going to accept that, whatever you did, right? You don't get buy-in. You really don't know if your customer is going to benefit or not. You don't know whether you're going to make the life of your customer better. You don't know what the outcomes are going to be. And then you don't know what the business outcomes are going to be, right? So why? So you don't answer the question of why I'm doing any of this stuff, right? You just do it because, hey, everybody else is doing it. This is nice. It's a cloud application, so it'll solve all my problems. It won't, right? So the best way to start is to figure out why do you do anything, right? How does that impact your customer and the way you build and deliver your products, and making sure that the organization agrees with you that the problems you're solving are the right ones to solve, right? This is another thing that we in IT actually do is, I'm going to solve a problem that I think that they have, but you've never talked to them, right? They have 10 other problems ahead of the problem you're trying to solve, and they're not interested in the problem you're solving. So it's very important to know what problem to solve and whether it's a real problem or not, okay? All right. So kind of how do you do this, right? So when I talked about customer journeys, I talked about product journeys, it's a lot more than a process. And this is an example, right? You know, like other ways to represent that. But it's each of those dots that you see is a process. There are organizations on top, right? There are interaction points. So what this is telling you is, how do your customers interact with you, or how do external parties interact with you across the spectrum of the entire product or service that you provide, across all the processes and all the organizations. And then you can have metrics, right, which make sense, like, you know, what does it cost? What does a single path through my process cost? Or how much capacity do I have to deliver for that path or not? Or what's the final end user experience looks like? And so on, right? So you now have, as an owner of that product or the owner of that service, you know what's going on. Now, stuff like that, right? And again, so I can look at how many transactions and durations and inventories. Apply any business metric to this, it'll work, right? You know, so, and what you can also do is to see whether you're improving on a day over day, week over week, month over month basis. So the idea is, right, that if you can actually have this representation of the things that you do, you can improve in smaller increments, right? Which I keep talking about smaller increments because doing big bang stuff is like 20th century, right? You got to now make small changes a lot faster so you can actually show improvements a lot faster. And so with this kind of information, you can make small changes and get results, as opposed to doing a major ERP upgrade, spending, I don't know, $100 million to do that, and then getting a questionable outcome 10 years later, right? That's not how the world works anymore. So building this picture is not easy, right? That's why people don't do it. I mean, I talk about coming from top down. Why don't people come from top down? Because it's hard to define business objectives, it's hard to measure them, it's hard to instrument them. Nobody knows what the hell is going on. So getting transparency, which is process discovery and understanding what happens, is the first step, right? And instrumenting your applications to actually get this level of understanding is difficult, and there are solutions on the market now that help you do that, right? There are things like process mining, task mining. There are ways to connect to systems to not do this manually, but to generate this picture automatically, right? So that's what we're talking about over here. And again, you can see, there's a whole bunch of details and things you can get into, but the idea is the first step towards automation is this kind of understanding of your business, okay? Right. So let's summarize this, right? It's a fairly big slide, but I'll walk you through what does that hyper-automation journey look like for your company, right? So part one of that is discovery, right? It's called process discovery. There's a bunch of technologies arising now, process mining, task mining, that help automate process discovery. So the key idea in process mining is that you instrument your back-end systems, you read the logs from the back-end systems, all the systems generate logs, they have data in databases, and then you reverse engineer process flows from how the processes are implemented in systems, right? So you instrument them, you get your process picture. Now, it's not 100% accurate, right? It's somewhat accurate. You then use people, your SMEs, to say, okay, is this right? What do we do? How do we change this? And so you get that first discovery of your process. Once you do, you can design new ones, right? Now you can say, okay, how do I make this better, right? What should I change? And to do that, you can also do simulations, right? So this technology has also evolved quite a bit where you can say, okay, if I change my process design in this way, what will happen, right? Will it actually improve or not improve? And you do that because you have data from your systems. You can run that data in a simulated fashion through your process like it was real, and then you can make what-if adjustments to your process to get a better one. And then once you know that it's going to work and you've tested your design, you can then automate. You can then decide, okay, fine, I know my process. If I automate these 4 or 5 business activities, I'm going to get the results I'm looking for, and then you can actually deploy them in production, right? And as you do that, you don't stop, right? So you don't say, okay, this is a one-time thing. I understand my process. I design a new one. I deploy it. I'm done. No, right? Then what you can do is you can monitor your running processes. So this is where process mining also helps, because you can look at processes as that are continuously running in your systems and get that same data back that you got from discovery, right? So now you know how they're performing in the field, whether they're working or not. And then also you can use then models to predict, right? So if I've seen your process run 1,000,000 times and I know the source data that's feeding into it, I can model what will happen, right? So you get a crystal ball that says, okay, what's going to happen to my process that I've just started? And it might say that you're going to miss a delivery deadline because we saw 3 steps of a 10-step process. You're never going to get there, so do something now. So the idea, again, in getting some level of analytics, which is an overused term, it's not about the past, right? I'm not trying to analyze what happened in the past. That's nice. It's good to know. But I'm going to try to predict the future and then take actions now that will prevent problems in the future, right? So this is, again, sort of what you were talking about on the smart cities, right, is I can't wait for the problem to occur. I got to anticipate it and then avoid it entirely, right? So that's where technology is headed on the process state of the art, right? And now I have like a couple of slides for the customary iGraphics plug, right? So let's do that. So we have at iGraphics a system that does that, right? So we thought through this and said, what's the best way to provide a platform that does process design, ops intelligence, and automation in a single platform, right? Which can then really get you that 360-degree view and look at your process as it's running, do predictions, understand them, design them better, and so on. And so that's what we have built, right? So it's called Process 360 Live, and the idea, again, is to combine process design with ops intelligence and automation to get really far along in your process here, right? And so I put this up, right, not because I want you to understand the boxes and go through the technology. We can talk about that if you want that too. But it's just that it's very important to have the right data infrastructure that allows you to get data in and out of outside systems, so you can then have this process understanding, both from a bulk data as well as a streaming data point of view, and then you can connect that together with automation and basically your process understanding there. So again, all the technologies that have been talked about here at Axion Labs help you actually build that system out and connect it properly so that you can actually take advantage of the information that comes in from the different systems around you, okay? So I think I'm doing okay on time. All right, so what's the impact of all this, right? Like why am I doing all this? I chose a healthcare example here because I think Axion is big in healthcare and everyone's talking about healthcare. So this customer, right, B. Braun, they do a lot of medical devices as well as healthcare services. And if you need dialysis, right, if you have kidney problems and you need dialysis, you go to their service centers where they'll actually provide you dialysis. So think about it this way, right? You need dialysis, but you like vacations also, right? You like to go for vacations. So how do you do that, right? I mean, you got to plan, you got to call ahead, you got to figure out how you're going to get your dialysis. So what they wanted to do on their digital processes was that me as a person that gets dialysis, I can just go to any of their centers, walk in, get service, get out, right? No pre-planning. So just imagine harmonizing processes across 30 countries, healthcare plans, country regulations, all of those things. But the end result is, right, I expect an Uber-like experience, right? I push a button, a cab comes, I ride. I arrive at a healthcare center, I get dialysis, I leave, right? I don't have to worry about insurance or how I'm going to pay for it and all that. That's taken care of by the process. So that's what they did, right? There are 400 plus centers, 30 countries. You can go in any country and get what you need, and by harmonizing your processes across all of them. And then the second one here, right, is a little more mundane, right? But this is important to me because, again, this is focused on the customer experience. Both of those things that I'm talking about, people think automation is about efficiency, right? It is, but that's the lowest level of use case for automation. It's not just about efficiency, it's not just about eliminating people. That's not automation, right? That's not the case. It's about delivering a better customer experience. So it's about the top line too, right? It's about delivering a better customer experience so you get more revenue, you get more customers. Here, right, they had 10, 15 touch points with a customer just to do simple updates to accounts. And if you have ever dealt with a cable company, how many people deal with cable companies, right? How many people like cable companies? I got 0 hands up for liking cable companies, right? That's because they asked you 20 questions, right? Then you call in, they ask you 20 more of the same questions. And they tell you, I'm going to be here between 1 p.m. and 10 p.m. in the night or whatever it is, and they never show up, right? So the idea here is to not ask those questions, and they were able to actually improve their NPS scores a huge amount by focusing on that customer experience and automating all the processes that led up to it, right? So that's the idea of why you want process intelligence, why you think about hyper-automation, and then how that delivers real-world benefits. And I have exactly 1 minute left, looks like, so I'm good to go.
Thank you, Shoeb. So we have a few questions, and so how we should approach with hyper automation with legacy system or legacy code?
Yeah, so again, the question is interesting, right? It's not about the legacy code. The idea is if you have legacy systems or you have legacy codes, can you get data out of it, right, somehow? And they might not have APIs, but you can actually plug into the database and get it, right? So there are ways to get data out of even legacy solutions that would help you then set up for hyper automation.
Thanks, Shoeb. So in continuation to that, we know RPA has been there in the system for a while. So we have always seen that this is a patch technology. And what are your views on RPA?
Yeah, I agree 100%. My whole presentation was about that, right? So the RPA has not delivered because we went through this cycle of the peak of inflated expectations, right, for RPA that is going to solve everything. Now we are under this trough of disillusionment, and we are rising up, right? And so I think RPA is a good idea, but automation and RPA are not the same, right? And hyper automation and RPA are not the same. RPA is just one technology as part of a bigger spectrum of things that you can actually apply, right?
Thanks, Shoeb. So very interesting to know how you can model processes and simulate them. So do traditional BPMN systems address these needs?
They did, right? So the idea is that you do what's called Monte Carlo simulation, right? So you run all these events through a model, and you say, okay, what's the probability of taking path A, path B, whatever. You can model out your design processes. Some of the BPM solutions did it. The problem was they never had the right data, right? So without process mining or without actually understanding your systems or plugging into them, the source data for simulation is wrong, and therefore the simulation didn't work well, but now they do. Yeah.
So in that case, what are your views on different process mining tools?
Specific ones or in general?
Yeah, for example, Apromore or Celonis.
Yeah, good question, right? So there's a number of process mining solutions in the market today. There's Celonis, who is the 900-pound gorilla. There is Apromore. There's a bunch of other ones. We make them too. Use the iGraphics one. No, that's my view. But of course, I'm going to plug my solution, right? But no, they've come a long way, right? So process mining technology, if you haven't evaluated it, I would seriously suggest doing it because it actually works now, right? So it actually will give you accurate processes that you can look at.
Thanks, Shoeb. So can we build a digital twin for a clinical trial participant so as to reduce the cost of drug discovery?
Yes. It's a very, very good healthcare use case. You can build a digital twin of anything, right? Yesterday, I think Bhavish was showing us machines and digital twins of that. But we are much more in the digital twin of an organization, right? So I can actually also build a digital twin of your company, which is what systems do you use, what people are there, and so on, and model that. But yes, digital twin technology is up over there.
So will that be an automation?
It won't be automation will be part of it, but remember, automation is one part of improving that overall clinical trial efficacy. But what the simulations will do is tell you how to apply it, what countries to run it on, where you can find people to actually participate, and then also what are the right criteria for that participation in your clinical trials to be more effective.
Sure. So knowing that, what do you think is stopping us from doing that?
I don't think anything is stopping us, right? It's how you prioritize. If you want to do something, nothing's stopping you right now. And what I think right now is there is this convergence of new technologies that makes all this possible. And so nothing should stop us at this point.
Okay, thanks, Shoeb. A business typically could have upwards of 100 different processes. How do you prioritize which process to start to automate on?
Yeah. So there are various ways, right? The one way, the business approach, again, coming from the top down is, which are the processes that get you the $1 million deals, or which are the ones that are important to you from a strategic viewpoint? Focus on those, because if you achieve even a slightly better outcome or a little bit better outcome, everyone's going to pay attention, right? So our approach is pick one or two important processes and do the whole thing, and then just keep replicating, right? You don't have to do everything at once. You don't have to go through the whole 100 ones all at once.
Thanks, Shoeb. Sure. So probably the last question. What are some challenges that organizations face when trying to integrate decision intelligence into hyper-automation?
Yeah. Most of the challenges are organizational and communication, right? So one of it is who owns this, right? So let's say I want to do hyper-automation and I want to improve my business. Who owns this? Is it business or is it IT? If business owns this, they know what they want, but they don't know how. If IT owns this, it's the wrong approach because they will fix problems that you don't have. Like, I'm not saying that they're bad people. I'm in the technology field, but they won't ask, right? Because we don't talk to people. That's not something we like to do, right? So we build stuff and then we show it to you and say, okay, I did this, and you'll be like, why? So the problem is more coordination and people related as opposed to technology related in that area.
Sure. So will that be an approach to overcome these challenges?
Yeah. So what I've seen work is a partnership between a business functional unit head owner and some IT counterpart to work together on this, and then exec sponsor that gets buy-in, right? Because buy-in is the most critical thing. Because nobody wants to think about processes. It's a headache, right? So if you get people interested because there's some other reason to look at processes, then it works better.
Sure. Thanks, Shoeb. I know there are several other questions, but people will reach out to you for the responses. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Shoeb.